I've always considered myself someone who isn't afraid of change, but when it came to fitness, it was a bit more complicated. After a lot of thought and some personal setbacks, I decided it was time to take care of myself. I needed to change something, to feel more confident. So, I signed up for personal training with a coach recommended by a few friends. They told me he was a real professional. When he came to my house, I felt a bit nervous. Of course, I didn't expect anything extraordinary, but still. He was tall, with a confident stride and a warm smile. It felt like he knew exactly what I needed. As we started the workout, I noticed he didn't just give me instructions. He watched every move I made, every effort I put in, like he knew exactly where I needed to push harder and where to ease up. "Let's start with some simple exercises," he said, his voice calm but assertive. I followed his lead, and with every move, I felt my body come back to life, like I was reconnecting with a version of myself I had lost a long time ago. He encouraged me, but he didn't push too hard. Everything was perfectly balanced. I started thinking maybe this was exactly what I'd been needing all these years. By the second session, after we finished the warm-up, he came over to me, and I felt his presence more closely. We stood near each other, and for a moment, it was hard for me to concentrate. I needed to be strong, confident, but I couldn't help noticing how he was watching me, how his gaze became more intense, as though he was seeing more than just my body. I quickly turned away, trying to hide the unease I felt inside. We continued with the training, and I started noticing improvements. I didn't expect to feel so happy while doing these exercises, but the workouts became a real escape. Yet, I found myself thinking more and more about him, about the kind of person I wanted to be close to, not just physically, but emotionally. He was different. He was attentive, deep, understanding. But I didn't realize then that this workout, this encounter, would have a much bigger impact on my life than I could ever imagine. With every new session, I could feel my body starting to change. At first, when I began training, it seemed like I wouldn't be able to handle all these workouts. But with each step, with each repetition, I became stronger, more enduring. He always found a way to make the training so that I could achieve more and more results, but without overloading myself. Each exercise brought not only physical pain but also this incredible sense of satisfaction. I began to feel my strength and confidence growing with every day. The workouts became something more important for me, something beyond just a way to stay in shape. When he suggested a program that focused not only on physical development but also on personal growth, I agreed without a second thought. He explained that it's not just about the strength of the body but also about inner balance. We started working on my posture, flexibility, and breathing. I realized that some things, which I hadn't even considered before, affected my well-being and perception of life. I noticed how my confidence grew every day. Oddly enough, I no longer feared looking in the mirror, I no longer felt awkward. I began to notice how I started treating my body. With each new exercise, I became not only physically stronger but also as though I was unfolding from within. But here's what amazed me: despite all these changes, the workout started bringing not just physical but also emotional excitement. He began asking me more personal questions, and even though I initially tried to keep my distance, it became more and more difficult to hide my emotions. He was interested not only in my progress in training but also in my relationships, my personal life. It was like a subtle, almost imperceptible, but still distinct moment of closeness. "Have you ever thought about how your personal life affects your progress in training?" he asked one day, watching my efforts. I felt awkward. I wasn't used to sharing such things, especially with someone I had known for such a short time. But his gaze, his tone, they were so sincere that I felt my world turning upside down. He wasn't just a coach. He became the person who asked me questions I couldn't just answer like that. He made me reflect on myself. My life began to change not only externally but internally. I could feel how my feelings began to evolve towards something deeper. It was strange, but I couldn't stop. The more time I spent with him, the more I realized that these workouts had stopped being just exercises. They had become something so much more. something I couldn't put into words. And with every passing moment, it became harder to stay cold and detached. Before I continue, I'd like to take a short pause and ask you to share in the comments where you're listening to my story from. Have you ever had similar experiences in your life? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And of course, if you're enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next chapters. Now, I continue. With each passing day, the workouts became something more important to me, something I couldn't quite put into words. What had started as simple fitness sessions was gradually blurring the lines between professional and personal. We began having training sessions not just in the gym but outside normal training hours, on walks, over dinners after our sessions when we discussed new techniques and approaches. I couldn't deny that I was getting closer to him. His charisma, his attention, his understanding, it all started to captivate me, consume me. I found it difficult to handle this growing attraction. My thoughts more and more often drifted toward him, and I caught myself realizing that I was starting to see him not just as a trainer but as someone who was filling a space in my life. All those moments began to cross the line between professionalism and something much more personal. I found myself thinking that my relationship with my partner was fading, and in comparison to the feelings I had for the trainer, my relationship no longer seemed as meaningful. One evening, after a particularly intense session, he suggested we take a walk in the park. We walked in silence, but each step felt like something more than just a walk. I could feel his presence, and I couldn't understand what was happening inside me. We sat on a bench, and the conversation became more open. He asked me a question I hadn't expected. Have you ever thought about what your life would be like if you had to choose between two people? He asked, looking me straight in the eye. I froze. That question hung in the air, and I felt something break inside me. He was so sincere, I couldn't help but answer. But that was just the beginning. In the moment when I was trying to make sense of my feelings and emotions, something unexpected happened. My phone vibrated, and I glanced at the screen. It was a message from my partner, with whom I hadn't spoken openly in a while. When I opened the message, I saw something I hadn't expected. He wasn't just texting me, he was telling me that he could sense something was wrong. He noticed how I had been pulling away, how our conversations had become shorter. I read his words, and my world seemed to flip upside down. He knew. He saw that something was happening, and even though I'd tried to hide my feelings, he had noticed them. At that moment, I realized that everything I had thought to be true was actually a distorted reality. I sat on the bench, stunned by this revelation. My entire view of the world was crumbling before my eyes, and I couldn't understand what to do next. My feelings for the trainer, which seemed so real, now felt unclear and confusing. And at that moment, I realized that I was standing on the edge, and crossing it wouldn't be as easy as I thought. No matter how hard I tried to distance myself, it was already too strong. I don't know what to do, I said quietly. My words were filled with doubt and uncertainty. And all I could do was look into his eyes, trying to figure out what would happen next. Every day became more and more confusing. With each new training session, I could feel my feelings for the trainer growing stronger. I tried to find logic in it, tell myself that it was just a phase, an infatuation, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. This was something much more. I increasingly found myself thinking that I couldn't imagine my life without those moments with him, without his presence. A real battle was raging inside me. Should I stay in my relationship with my partner, whom I had been with for a long time, or should I completely devote myself to this new, unknown path that was pulling me towards the trainer? My life started to feel like walking on a tightrope. Every step mattered. Every decision could affect the future. I couldn't afford to make a mistake. I couldn't understand what was going on inside me, but one thing was clear, I was standing on the edge of something that would change me forever. And then, just when I thought I couldn't go on in this ignorance, something happened that turned everything upside down. I accidentally came across some information about the trainer that made me stop and think. It all started with a simple, random glance at his personal documents when I decided to help him with some files left after the workout. In one of the folders, I found the contact details of his former clients, along with strange notes about how he often changes workplaces. This was odd because the trainer had always seemed so stable and confident. Why was he changing jobs so frequently? Why was there so much uncertainty in his life? At that moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. A strange sense of unease overwhelmed me. I couldn't figure out what it meant. I decided to ask around, and soon I found out that many people who had worked with him said that he sometimes seemed more interested in personal connections than in training. There were rumors that he had started close relationships with clients, and these always ended with him disappearing, leaving them in uncertainty. All of this made me uneasy, but I couldn't understand if it was true. And then I realized that I had become a part of something that could turn dangerous. From that point on, I could no longer see what was happening between us the way I had before. My feelings became conflicted. I couldn't forget him, but I also couldn't shake the feeling that everything happening between us wasn't as clean and simple as I had thought. I began to understand that my own feelings and desires might be manipulated, and that I was playing with fire. I was trying to decide what to do next, but each step seemed more dangerous than the last. My partner could sense something was wrong and began asking questions. I couldn't answer him honestly, couldn't tell him what was really happening. I was too tangled in my feelings, in my life. My trainer, who had once seemed like the answer to everything, was now part of the problem. And I didn't know how to choose what was more important to me, to continue as I was or to take a step into the unknown. Lost in these thoughts, I realized that I was on the edge. The choice I made would determine the course of my entire life. I was playing with fire, and now there was no turning back. The decision was mine, but the consequences could be unpredictable. What do you think about this story? Have you had similar experiences in your life when feelings and choices got so tangled? I really appreciate your opinion, and your comments are truly important to me. Share your thoughts below, as each one of you matters to me. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any new thrilling stories. Wishing you a great day, and if you listened to the end, write in the comments, "Playing with fire," so I know you didn't miss anything important.